All right, with the frame painted and the suspension all done, we can start building the truck up from there. So on today's episode, we're going to start doing body panel fitment, and this truck is actually going to start looking like a truck.
Okay, come to me, 1/4 inch.
Okay.
I'm good there. How you looking?
Let's go forward at about 1/8 on my side.
1/8 of an inch?
Yep. Hold yours right there.
Got
Good.
it?
Yep.
Good.
Guys, wait, what's going on here? I wanted to help build my own truck, and you already got the cab on? That's kind of a big piece.
Well, Chris,
what's going on?
You called us yesterday and said
I
this thing's
did.
going to SEMA.
Yep.
So we're officially a part of the SEMA Crunch, and it's right around the corner. So every second counts. So we had to get started on this before
So you
you
just
even got
decided to go ahead and start
Just
building my
had to get
truck
started,
for me. Right. So what did you do? How much work is left on the cab here?
Well, we got the cab on, we were just squaring it up, and we're getting ready to install the cab mounts.
Okay. Well, that's right. I brought them. So we're going to do that, square it up. So after we're done with the cab, Mike, what's next?
Yeah, we'll get the new cab mounts in, get the bolts in it, so it's kind of where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Get this radiator support on, and we can start squaring up the front end.
Okay, and then we've got all these brand new body panels from year one.
Yeah.
So we got to do an unboxing and see what kind of damage there might be, may or may not be through shipping. And if there is, you can tell us what we're going to need to do to fix that. So
Yeah, we'll assess the damage right there, and let's get this truck built.
all right, let's do it.
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right, let's get the right-hand door out. That's what this is, right, Mike?
That's what it says.
Says right there. Let's pop it out, man. This car looks pretty good, Mike. Let's check out the other one.
Well, we got a little damage.
Oh boy, is that difficult to fix, do you think, or what are we in for here?
No, it's not too bad. I mean, I've fixed worse. That's typical. You know, sometimes the box gets dropped on its corner, and that's the result. So that's just what we have to deal with. This will be the front bulkhead of the bed. We got this bent edge. No big deal. We can hammer and dolly that straight.
Now for the tailgate.
Yeah, we got a little pinch quarter here. Not a big deal. We can hammer and dolly that straight back around.
Looks all right over here again.
Come on, I always get the bent end.
Because you're the guy that has to fix it. So Mike, we are sitting in a sea of body panels.
We
got
are.
everything here but the bed floor, because it was just too gigantic
Correct,
to actually
yeah, it was
fit
just
in
taking
the
up too
scene.
much room.
And everything came out pretty good, except for a couple,
Yeah,
right?
you know, everything came out really clean. Good clean sheet metal. A couple dings here and there, but
Yeah.
nothing major.
Yeah, so what's the order in which we're going to put this whole Lego set together?
The order of our disorder. So we're gonna get the cab squared up with the new bed mounts. We'll get the radiator support in, because that's where everything's gonna bolt to.
Right.
We'll get the fenders hung, the hood, get all that squared up. Now our cab's pretty well squared up. Then we're gonna move on to the bed and build the bed.
All right, well, I want to see a truck. Let's go
Let's
put it
get to
together.
Now before we started with the body panels, we added a few more parts up front from year one, like this power steering gearbox, which was a simple 4-bolt install. Next up is the pitman arm, which is secured using the supplied castle nut and the 1 5/16 inch nut. And now that we've got a few more parts installed up front, let's get on with the body panels. We'll be right back after this break to start making this truck look like a truck. This jumbled mess right here is all the hardware for the cab mount kit. Let's put a few of the pieces together. Here's what they look like assembled. The one on the left is for the front of the cab, the one on the right for the rear. In the front, all you end up seeing in the cab is the top of the bolt. The frame goes right here. The rear cab mount bolts up from underneath into factory mounts. Since the cab was sitting right on the frame, we had to jack it up a little bit to install the mounts. And now that we've got a little bit of space between the cab and the frame, we can install the front mounts. Next up are the rear cab mounts. This one's a little different because it actually mounts from the bottom up right into the threads inside the cab. After installing all the cab mounts, lower the cab back down onto those mounts and then tighten them up and torque them to spec. Alright, now let's get some body parts installed, starting with the doors. You want to start here and work forward with the front clip. There are 3 hinge bolts on the top and 3 on the bottom. One thing you can count on is that the doors are never going to be aligned correctly on the first try, so loosen the outer hinge bolts and do some test fitting to see how things are looking. After doing some initial fitment, we determined that the door needed to be about 1/8 of an inch lower and then about 1/4 of an inch further back. This is a process that requires at least 2 people, one to hold the door in place and the other to tighten or loosen the bolts. After a successful attempt at lowering the door by about 1/8 of an inch, it was time to try moving the door back about 1/4 of an inch. Mike had a few of these handy metal shims in various thicknesses. A few here and there did the trick. Of course, there's no door seals in place yet, but right now the driver's side door couldn't be more spot on. Now keep in mind that the tolerances for these old trucks just aren't what they are today, so don't expect perfection. Close enough sometimes is all you're going to get. Now as this 69 C10's first panel sits right now, we couldn't be happier. Now on to the passenger side door. As we found out earlier when we unboxed the passenger side door, there's some damage to the corner. Mike grabbed some basic tools, yes that's a 2x4 and a rubber mallet, and straightened it back out. The piece of wood and hammer straightened out the major problem. It looks great, but it's far from perfect. So next he busted out his dolly and used his hammer to perform some minor adjustments. After the major and minor adjustments are done, he just had to do some fine tuning with a metal file and dual action sander. When he's all done, you'll never know it was bent. Pretty nice work there, Mike. After he fixed it up, we mounted the door to the passenger side in the same way we did to the driver's side door. Next, we can work on the front clip, starting with the core support. Prepare your core support hardware before installing the core support itself. It looks like this, and installing it looks as easy as this. This is what the hardware looks like for the fenders. They typically come in a pre-packaged box for your C10 build. You're going to need a bunch of them. There's not a whole lot holding the core support down, but you do want to make sure it's level because the next step is to mount the fenders to it and the cab. After putting the fenders in place, snug up the bolts, but don't do any final tightening. As you'll soon learn, you're going to be loosening and tightening them quite a bit to get the right fitment after installing both of your fenders and your hood. Before we can install the hood, we've got to install the hood mounts. These are pretty easy to install with just a few bolts. Now, like the fenders, you want to snug these bolts down pretty good, but not final torque spec, because when it comes time for that hood, you're going to be loosening and tightening a lot of bolts to get it to fit right. And now for the tricky part. Like most things when it comes to building a truck from the frame up, there are a lot of different ways to perform the same tasks. In this case of installing the hood springs, this is Britt's method. Using a tie-down strap, he pulls the opposite end of the spring and hooks it into place. The last piece of the puzzle up front is the hood. It is heavy, so we recommend using at least 2 people, but a third certainly helps. There are 2 bolts on either side that attach the hood to the mounts. Like all the other parts of the front clip that we've installed so far, snug the bolts down, but don't torque them all the way down. Okay, now for the fun part, alignment. Everything is based on the alignment of the doors, so the gaps between the fenders and the doors have to be right. Working your way up front, you got to make sure that the fenders are spaced out just enough so the hood is aligned properly. You want both the hood gaps to be even. This entire alignment process is a bit tedious, but it's possible. Metal shims also really help. Just take your time, have some help, and torque down all your bolts after you've got the right alignment. You can watch us go through the process right here. And when you see your hood to fender gap look dialed in like this, have your touchdown celebration dance and then do what we did. Open and close the hood a few more times because, buddy, you finally did it. high fives all around. The front end came together really nicely, and the body panels from year one had a lot to do with that. When we come back from our break, we're going to show you how to build the bed.
That should be good right there.
Yeah, it'll give us enough room.
You good?
I think so. That should be good.
All right, guys, what's going on back here? So
Hey, Chris.
we just finished with the front end, and there was a whole lot of adjustment that we needed to do there. So maybe we talk about that, all the different adjustment points, because we open and close that hood probably 50 times.
At least, you get your doors squared up, get the fenders hung, and then that's when all the difficulty comes in, is adjusting the hood, because you've got adjustment points on the hinge itself, at the hood, back and forth. As you showed, we had to shim out the fenders to get the gaps right. It's a little bit of a wrestle, so you got to have some patience.
Right. So we start with the doors, fenders, core support, and then the last piece of the puzzle is that hood. And that's the alignment, because you want to get those gaps just perfect, right?
Right, and that's where it comes into the shims and all the adjustments. And you need to have a little bit of knowledge. I mean, it is kind of a do-it-yourself, but if you don't have any knowledge, you're in for a...
And patience and a lot of time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So Britt, when it comes to the bed, we've got the floor here. What other parts, what's involved here, and how many bolts actually attach the bed?
You know, I've never counted how many bolts, but I'd guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 50. Now, if you're doing a wood bed kit, double that number.
Yeah, this guy's crazy.
But there is a system or an order to do the bed. The first thing you want to do is get the steel bed in place, and then we want to install the bulkhead.
Okay.
And then we're going to install the side panels, and then we're going to go back to the tailgate, and we're going to square that up.
Okay, so when it comes to the tailgate, Mike, I know there's a whole lot more involved. It's not just bolting up things like
Correct.
the sides.
After you get the front, it kind of self-squares itself up, because you're bolting the sides and across the bottom. Same on the bed sides. Tailgate's a little more involved, because you have to get your bed sides square, so when you close the tailgate, you don't have a giant gap on one side, tight on the other.
Right.
So you square it up, and you actually have to weld a couple of spots to keep everything. After everything's aligned and snugged down, you weld a couple of spots
so it doesn't move anywhere.
Yep,
yeah.
You're squared up.
So when it comes to adjusting, we don't have as many problems as we do with the front
on the
end.
bed, the only adjustment stuff we have is the tailgate, no hood.
All right, and then we bolt that sucker down, and we're good to go.
We're good to go.
Slide it forward, drop 8 bolts in it, and
All right, let's go grab a bulkhead and bolt it on.
While the floor of the bed is an easy 8-bolt installation, the sides and the wheel tubs take a little bit more effort. The bulkhead goes up first with a few bolts along the bottom. The sides go on next, bolting them up to the bulkhead and the bottom of the bed. As you can see, this is pretty straightforward without much more effort than installing a bunch of bolts. Two walls and a floor are looking pretty good, but we hit a snag with the driver's bedside. Some minor shipping damage caused Mike to break out his body fixing tools once again.
Well, hello, darling.
Well, after a whole lot of banging, the driver's bedside can be installed just like the passenger side. The fourth wall, the tailgate, had some shipping damage as well. Once again, more metal needed to be knocked back into place with some persuasion, then a little cutting too. The 8 bed bolts went in next, and then the tailgate with the hinge kit. Similar to the hood, the tailgate required a little bit of finessing with the bed sides to get the proper alignment. Last but not least, we installed the wheel tubs. These take a little bit of work because of all the bolts. By the way, having a punch tool for proper alignment definitely helps. My 1969 Chevrolet C10 now officially looks like a truck. All the body panels went together smoothly, and outside of a few minor shipping dents, which is pretty common, all of us were impressed. Many thanks to Year One for all the new sheet metal. This is going to be an incredible truck, and I can't wait to see it finalized. It may not have an interior right now, an engine, or... okay, seriously, there's a lot of work still left to do, but at least there's more than just a frame. All that will come in future episodes, including new wheels and tires. These are still just rollers. But now we have to take the front end back apart, the cab off, and all of it goes to paint. That's where we'll pick back up in the next episode as Mike shows us how to paint a truck. We'll be right back after this break with Partz.
Something so simple as a piece of plastic can also be, well, life-changing for a tool guy. CRAFTSMAN's got some new socket trays out on the market in 1/4 inch, 3/8, and 1/2 inch sizes, and they've got some unique design features that I haven't seen in any other socket trays that I've seen around in stores, online, or have used in the past, including these ones from Hanson. These have been my go-to. I've got them in all sizes that I've been using for years, and they're great. But the plastic's a little bit cheap, so these posts or these dowels will tend to break off. You can see I'm missing one right there. And they've been great for the most part, but there's a whole bunch of design features that are in these new ones from CRAFTSMAN that I really love and I've been using for the past couple of months, and I want to show you what they are. Now, first off, like I already mentioned, they don't have long plastic dowels that tend to break off over time and the sockets kind of fit loosely onto them. Instead, CRAFTSMAN's socket trays have these rubber socket holders that are low profile and rubber. They actually grip onto the socket really tight, so if you shake it around or tip it over, they actually stay on pretty tightly. They're evenly spaced out, there's easy to read markings, the white numbers against the dark red background makes it really easy to see, and that font size is really nice and big, so when you're looking into a huge drawer, a sea full of sockets, you're able to find the one that you need very easily, as opposed to squinting and looking at like my old socket tray where there's just this tiny number at the top of the dowel and it's just impossible. Or I just usually end up looking at the front of the socket, so no more of that with these. Now, the other cool thing that I like about these socket trays is that they hold both standard and metric size sockets. So you can see there on the bottom, you got the standard, the step up, there's a little bit of a raised platform for the back row. That is for your metric. And I actually bought 2 of these each for the different sizes, 1/4 inch, 3/8, and 1/2 inch. The reason is so I could put all my shorties, the standard size sockets on one tray and put all my deeper, taller ones on another tray. They've also got excellent socket retention, which means when your drawer is slammed or bumped, or maybe you've got the tray out, it's sitting up on your workbench or down on the floor while you're working on your car and someone walks by, or you bump it, and your sockets aren't gonna go flying because of those rubber socket holders. They are super grippy and they stay in tight. Actually, if you take the tray and lean it over to the side, or sometimes, depending on the weight of the sockets, they'll actually stay on those little rubber socket holders, even upside down. Pretty cool. They've got great surface contact, so whether it's your drawer liner or top of your workbench or down the ground concrete or your wood floors or whatever, they're not going to slide around because of this rubber edge that goes all the way around. There's also these indentations on the sides, so it allows you to easily pick them up and move them around. And you'll notice that the tray doesn't flex a whole lot. I mean, it is plastic, so it will flex a little bit, but not as much as those cheap plastic ones. So check this out, guys. Of course, my workbench is completely smooth, flat, and clean, but look how hard it is to move these things around with those rubber edges. Of course, this one's a little bit easier, but because it's lightweight. But check this out. I just love the fact that these can go and tip over or even go completely upside down. I mean, gravity, where are you, man? You're not working very hard today. So I've had these for the past couple of months, been testing them out in my tool chest, taking them out, putting them on my workbench, on the floor, in the truck, working everywhere, and they are pretty cool. Now, I will say that the one downside to these is the size difference. They take up a lot more space. Just check out the footprint between that one and this one, both 3/8 size sockets. This one takes up a lot less space, but the advantage is they're spaced out a little bit more evenly and they've got that big text, so you end up spending less time in that sea of sockets, looking for the one that you want, and that I like better than having to deal with the cramped old school ones that I've had for years. So guys, we literally started with a huge pile of body panels from year one, and a couple days later, we've got a truck. So based on your experience, because both of you are pros, have been doing this for a while, how do you think things came together based on other products that you've dealt with?
Actual pretty easy build on this one. Your truck went together pretty easy with the higher quality parts. You know, we had our fitment issues, with totally normal with anybody's parts, but with the higher quality parts made a huge difference.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun putting it together and seeing it come together panel by panel.
Sure.
And so the next episode after this, we're talking about paint. So tell me a little bit about that.
So next we'll fix all our blemishes from, shipping and everything. We're gonna get rid of this filler hole.
Yep, because we're relocating the fuel tank.
Correct.
Yep.
So we'll get all the body work done, get it primered and get it prepped and everything. And thanks to Axo Nobel and Sickens, they stepped up and they're gonna cover all the paint materials and everything from the primer all the way to the clear coat.
Yeah, that's a lot of paint too, because we're doing both the
We're doing inside, outside,
everything.
underside. It's going to be a completer. So that's huge. So big thanks to Sickens.
Yeah, so Britt, the next episode after paint, what do you think that looks like? Just give me a little foreshadowing.
Well, we've been talking about giving this truck a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And so we got to start looking to the future of getting a drivetrain in your truck.
Right.
So in order to do that, we need to get this thing wired up so we can run 12 volts through it. So it's going to power up everything once we're ready to put that motor in place.
Yeah, so we still have a whole lot of episodes coming up on the C10 build, don't we, guys?
Sure do.
Yeah. So a huge thanks to year one. We'll catch you guys next time on Motors. And then say action or something, like a director would. Rolling and rolling.
We're officially on the SEMA Crunch, and we can't.
I can't believe you can't talk. And then there's Mike.
Let's go forward my side just a fuzz. I like that right there. That's a technical term, a fuzz.